I'm a postdoctoral research fellow at the Geary Institute. It's my pleasure to be chairing today's seminar. Before I introduce the speakers, a little bit of housekeeping, so please make sure your phones are on silent. Please watch the tables if you're putting any food or drink in it, because I'm known to just flip over at random. And finally, if you can, please keep your questions to the end, because we record seminars and it makes it easier for us on the editing front. So it's my pleasure today to welcome Associate Professor Ernesto Vasquez del Aguila and Dr. Theresa Schilling from the School of Social Policy, Social Work and Social Justice, whose talk will be on transforming higher education through inclusive, decolonial and intersectional approaches. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. It's our pleasure to present this project. It's the first time we have presented the project. And we have also another agenda behind presenting this project, which is to try to encourage people to apply for Erasmus projects. Our university is very proud showing the list of how many Erasmus projects we have, but sometimes at the school level, because there's no money that comes directly to schools, they are not so appreciated, but they are fantastic opportunities for networking, to working across Europe and to do things in education. So I'm the PI of this project, and Theresa, Dr. Theresa Schilling is the project manager. So welcome. That's the rest of the team. Also, besides myself and Theresa, we have Alexa McDermott, who is a PhD student, and Aguila, which is also a PhD student who are tutoring here in the School of Social Policy, Social Work and Social Justice, and they will be also part of the tutors training that we'll explain later. And also Liam Fogarty is part of the team member. That's the content for today. Let's start with a little bit of background about the general project, the consortium, then our role as a UCD partners. We have this catchy term, AWARE, which is, I will explain what AWARE means, our outcomes, and then other outcomes that are already produced, and hopefully we'll have time for questions and answers. So about Unite, what's Unite? It's a network with 7 countries, European countries, Czech Republic, Ireland, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Spain. And we all are educators, and we're interested in using digital tools to promote inclusion in several fields that we'll discuss with you today. So the primary goal of Unite is to promote inclusion, drive digital transformation, and improve teaching quality in higher education, but creating innovative programs, digital tools, and the strategies. You could see it's a very ambitious goal. We are a very diverse project. We have 2 partners, the Spaniards and the Italians, who are engineers, so they are creating robots, they are creating artificial intelligence, and they're using artificial intelligence and also virtual reality. And we in UCD, we are the social scientists, so we provide support and consulting in particular issues of social justice and decoloniality and intersectionality, which is the key contribution of UCD to this project. So our lines of action, we all have these very catchy acronyms. The I teach is, those are the engineers, those are the genius in Spain and Italy, and I guess part of this has been a year now with them. Part of the learning experience of this project was to try the common language between myself, anthropologist, Theresa, social scientist, and try to find a common ground with engineers and architects and other educators. AWARE, that's UCD, leads this work package. Then DON is the the group of our colleagues that's from Portugal who are using AI to empower students for all backgrounds to create digital tools and to use digital tools in their learning. And guidance, they are the ones who disseminate the project and hopefully beyond Europe. We're ambitious, and because we're trying to create some toolkits, and we hope that will be used by other people, as we all have the dream when we create something. So what's the role of UCD? And we are the ones who provide support, who provide consultation, analysis, and development in all the packages, and looking at from the language that we're using. There are certain words that was one of the first surprises. There are certain words that we take for granted. For instance, simple when we talk about sexual minorities, the gay word, for instance, is not a label that Italians will use. They will use homosexuals, and for some other partners that's quite medicalized and has different connotations. So how to come together into a common language during the project. The UCD team advises on topics of inclusive and transformative pedagogy and teaching innovation, participating in all work packages. So we lead this work package, and we have basically three main roles here. The first was to map what it's there in terms of inclusion. So we are not pretending that we are going to create or discover what decoloniality or intersectionality is, but our first effort was to put together, to map, as I said, what was other countries in the global north and the global south were doing in terms of inclusion education. Then we have training for tutors that is happening now in Cordoba during January. We are going to we're going 5 faculty in total who are going. Is very generous in that Erasmus is very generous on exchanges for members of the team, and also we have another 5 students to be trained in Portugal. Now, directly what we do in UCD, there are 2 training programs. As I said, the university tutor training addressed to university tutors, faculty, to enhance their awareness on topics related to inclusion and innovation in teaching processes and learning and soft skills. So we also trying to, when we talk about decoloniality, we need to talk about empathy, compassion, kindness, soft skills that are incredibly difficult to teach, because includes that we teachers are kind, empathetic, and compassionate. It's a big statement to say that. So we approach these soft skills as something that we learn. So we learn to be empathetic, we learn to be kind. So the classroom became a process of learning to be kind and compassionate. And the student training, also, our main goal, I guess, is to empower students to use AI and topics there related to gender, sexualities, racial and cultural differences, and also disability and neurodiversity. So some of the outcomes of the project, the first outcome is training for tutors. That's the, said we lead this package also. And it's currently the last stage of development. I'll show you some of the training packages and how we are approaching to this process. And those are the partners that I mentioned. And the role is to evaluate the training that we are producing. So we're going to share with you some of the toolkits that we have, and the other partners have to how to evaluate our packages, and we do the same with the other packages. The training content, there are 5 packages that we'll be developing over 3 days. The first one is equity, gender, and cultural barriers, and the responsible here is Europass Teacher Academy, and this is the UCD package, which is embedding inclusion through decoloniality and intersectionality. We have another institution doing approaching diverse learning requirements, UD Health and neurodiversity. Assessing institutional inclusion, another institution, and artificial intelligence in higher education. That's the most technical part of the package, in which the engineers will bring virtual reality and all the gadgets that they are creating in their labs. In terms of the components, it's a 30-hour package. The first part is 15 hours online training. So our participants, they will be reading, they will be listening to podcasts. There are different sources, different types of materials, documentaries, and combined with one required reading. So try not to make this boring or too onerous for faculty. The same for intersectionality, some concepts, strategies, and reflections. And then they have to reflect at the end of these 15 hours on a personal diary about what they learned or how they can apply decoloniality and intersectionality into their practice. After that, we're bringing them to Cordoba, and that's the time that they need to share their experience. We start not by teaching them decoloniality, but learning from them what they learned during this training. We have some workshops that I'm going to show you in a bit about how we are approaching, what are our indicators to embed decoloniality and intersectionality. And at the end of the training with faculty, we expect that everybody will have an action plan. And our approach here is +1, so we don't expect that everybody will be changing their curriculum or their syllabus, but at least if they can implement one action, and we'll be happy. And one action could be changing the assessment, making more inclusive, incorporating the voices of a student in the assessment, incorporating a reading from the Global South in a different language, etc. That could be the +1 action that we expect in the training. So to summarize the strategies, so we're building all this training in decolonial pedagogy, intersectional analysis, inclusive teaching that recognizes and explores access of oppression, identity, but also privilege in terms of race, gender, sexuality, neurodiversity, disability, etc. And said we use different materials from articles, art, podcasts, media, etc. And our aim, again, is to empower tutors and students as ambassadors for inclusion. Perhaps because we're using AI, the major challenge here is when we talk about inclusive assessment is that we are promoting the use of AI that is ethically grounded, but at the same time provide, particularly for minoritized students, the opportunity to improve their learning through AI. Now, this is I'm opening here an ocean of decoloniality principles, how we are going to be approaching to decoloniality, how we're going to be embedding decoloniality. And I started this training saying that the best way to start with this discussion is to tell your students that the thick accents when they listen in the classrooms are not just coming from their classmates who are international, but also from their faculty. So my thick Peruvian accent hopefully is a reminder that there is knowledge beyond the global north. So we start with the recognition that what we learn, that we know, is a fraction which is produced in the rest of the world. What we read is what passed the filter of English-speaking journals, and that's the hegemonic knowledge that we keep repeating and learning. Those are some of the authors that we use as a framework. Quijano, parenthesis, he was a Peruvian, and Peruvian also. He was a professor in my university. He was completely ignored, and I didn't know that he was that recognized figure when I was doing my undergraduate in my university, and then when the world discovered Quijano, then Peruvians were also using his approach, as usual happens. In terms of the decoloniality of gender, or we want to challenge this, the idea that when colonial powers left countries like in Latin America or here in Ireland, the structures of colonization still stayed in these countries. So if you go to Latin America, you will still see that after the Spaniards left more than 300 years now, we still use whiteness to judge beauty or decency or the quality of things, something that didn't change with independence. So that's our bigger framework of decoloniality. We also use some global movements, the Rhodes Must Fall movement in South Africa, the Black Lives Matter, and of course, always back to Paulo Freire and questioning these two different approaches, the more memorizing things and accumulating concepts versus problem solving, or creating a community of researchers, a community of educators. So that's our bigger framework, how to put ups and downs some of the knowledge that we take for granted, and also accept, interiorize that this process is going to be messy, it's not going to be always rational or straightforward. And here I have an example that we're going to use in our training. The first pictures they are the hijras of India and Pakistan, and the other picture, they are the muxes on Mexico. We call now them transgender people, and it's amazing. It's wonderful that we have this positive label that non-binary people, trans individuals, are using to define themselves, but they're not trans. They are muxes, they are hijas. And what scholars who work with them show is that the wealthy hijas, the wealthy muxes, they will be embracing using the word transgender because it gives them more status, and the less privileged stay with the local labels. So how again we accept the as I said, with the gay label that brought some positive connotation to sexual diversity in countries in which there was no language to describe homosexuality beyond either the medicalized label or the derogatory terms. So we have on that on one hand these positive ideas that are coming with globalization, but then respect the localized identities that creating resistance and telling the world that they are hijras, they are muxes, they are backlash in the Philippines, etc., with a very particular identity and with good intentions, but trying to homogenize them and transform into one global identity. In terms of intersectionality, again, I love this picture, and surprise, it's from Peru. I love this picture because it allows us to talk about intersectionality, not just in terms of gender, but also in terms of race or ethnicity. The guy who is wearing these Western clothes, he most probably is related, blood related to the women in the picture. He could be the husband, he could be the brother, he could be what else? What other types of kinship? Brother, husband, uncle, etc., etc. But because how gender ethnicity is constructed in Peru, he has more opportunities to travel to other urban cities. So he wears these Western clothes, he speaks Spanish, the official language of Peru, are the women who are blood related again to them, but they stay in the community and they speak Quechua, the native language, and they don't have the mobility of the men. So there's an anthropologist who says this beautiful phrase that women are more indigenous than men, basically to reflect how even though, again, they're all blood-related, they all have the same trajectories in life, but at the end of the day, because gender, race, ethnicity, you will have different outcomes, and women are considered indigenous, and he will be considered mestizo, which is a higher level in the racial hierarchies in Latin America. So that's an entrance to the discussion on intersectionality, to challenge that it's not a tokenistic enterprise, that is not just to count how many diverse people we have in the room, but this is about approaches. So we're talking about race, how grounded you are in critical race theory. We are talking about gender, so what's your approach, your gaze in terms of gender, feminism, etc. And of course, this is challenging. I always remember my colleague Prospera here, that he says, if in my whole life, if someone can remember that I'm good on something, on one approach, I'll be delighted. And so we are asking our students, asking our tutors to have this more holistic approach that has different gazes, different methodologies, etc. So that's one of the biggest challenges of intersectionality. But again, it's not a collection of factors, but to understand that our positionality is composed of different matrices. So when I introduce myself here to you, I just said that I'm Ernesto, and with that label, with my name, there are coming so many identities, so many backgrounds that form part of my not just my access of potential access of discrimination, but also my privilege. I said that in Latin America, I can pass as a white person, but just take a flight. I'm in the US, I'm an immigrant. When I was living in the Philippines, I was an expat, I was not an immigrant. I passed for almost white. Here in Ireland, they have no clue what I am. So it's more interesting. So after all this background, so what do we do in Aware? Trying to create inclusive conceptualize inclusive education as an active practice which involves a genuine commitment to cultivating transformative academic communities within and beyond the classroom. we aim to critically examine and challenge structural inequalities that prevent true inclusion within higher education. That's through the training of tutors and students. Recognize the colonial legacies, the center in the Western hegemonic epistemologies that is not just coming from imperial power, but also from local elites that still are running the agenda in the global south and other countries. Critically examines learning context through an intersectional lens, approaches teaching as co-learning, so supports solidarity through action-oriented pedagogy, conceives our students as partners, and remain critical of institutional approaches that rely on tokenism, don't really challenge hidden curriculums and such as heteronormativity, racism in education, and address diversity without real strategies of inclusion. As a summary, so we interrogate the positionality of educators, students, so who we are. So that I mentioned my own identity, so it's kind of I guess also challenging, because in a group like this with 20 plus people, it's conducive and positive to have this discussion and to talk about being more personal, more narcissistic, talk about Peru again and again. But we know we have a class of 200 plus students. The dynamic is completely different. So how we can still talk about positionality and have a class environment that is inclusive when we are in a larger classroom. I mentioned already the collaborative aspect of the program seeks to dismantle hidden curriculum. I'm summarizing now. Values and explores multiple epistemologies, and that means not just from our frameworks, but also the way we do teach. My colleague Krishna is not here, but she, for instance, uses objects, cultural artifacts that the global north discover cultural artifacts, but in the global south that being used for decades before that became, particularly after the pandemic, became the tool, the strategy to bring something innovative to classroom. My colleague Krishna is not here, but she uses in her classroom objects that people bring, and through these objects, people are learning about social justice. Balances conceptual foundations with practical classroom tools, and again, I said another challenge, incorporate inclusive assessment that goes beyond the AI moral panic that we all were shocked more than a year now, but what we are promoting here is that we need to treat AI as we, at the moment when Google or Wikipedia came at the beginning, we thought was the end of the world, and it wasn't. And so how we teach our students that the use of AI is okay when it's used ethically and for inclusive purposes also. I mentioned that. This is an example of the training, so the online training, when the tutors click in this, in one of these, either decoloniality, intersectionality, they have a reading that we selected, then a podcast, a video, that's a documentary with Patricia Hill Collins, and other types of materials. We're using at the moment Padlet to is the most participatory tool we found so far, because allow our participants also to upload their own materials. A website is a little more restrictive, so Padlet has that advantage that we are offering a number of documentaries or tools, etc., but they can, during the process, add their own and become more collaborative, the process of learning. In terms of training for students, that's the second part of the program that will commence in May 2026. Also, there are interactive training sessions focus on critical and emergent topics, and this is something that we, during the year, after consultation, we decided as a consortium to go with the following topics: gender and sexuality, AI and machine learning, disability and accessibility, culture and race, and the program will use the hackathon style format. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this methodology. It came from the tech companies and from engineering to put together creative people in a short period. That's the marathon metaphor. Create something sustainable. So we are saying that we are reimagining the hackathon because we are going to mix engineer students with social science students, students from humanities, and they together need to create their own approach, type of assessment, list of readings, etc., for all the topics I mentioned before. And now I'm going to pass to the research manager, my colleague Theresa, and she will show you outcomes.
Okay, hi. So just very briefly, we just wanted to talk about some of the other kind of outcomes from the project. Obviously, that was a very kind of comprehensive overview of the training programs, which is the kind of main work package that UCD is leading. As Ernesto briefly kind of spoke about, one of the first things that UCD was responsible for was mapping the kind of international inclusive training practices and diversity programs already existing in education. And there were multiple reasons we wanted to do this. The first was to identify the kind of best practices and areas for expansion to inform our own kind of approach to the AWARE training. But it was also to provide a common base for all the partners in designing their own work packages to kind of understand what other educational institutions are doing and what's kind of at the cutting edge of, I suppose, diversity and inclusion. And finally, it's kind of in a decolonial kind of mindset, I suppose. We wanted to establish a community of learners that extends beyond the project. So one that is far-reaching in international contexts, but also kind of takes knowledge from other sources rather than presenting something that through the project is seen as wholly our contribution to the ideas of inclusion and diversity. We're learning from others and we're building upon that learning. Our next kind of, I think, large outcome, I suppose, would be what we call the All-In Toolkit, a Unite Teaching and Learning Guide to Implementing Inclusive Language. And this emerged early in the project when, as Ernesto was describing, we were noticing that there's a difference around language and terminology when it comes to the kind of topics that we were covering within these training programs. And all of the work packages talk about, inclusion, disability, accessibility, race, gender, but we all had a very different kind of cultural framing when we were speaking about these topics. So something that we identified as necessary was to have some sort of glossary or kind of tool where we could all return to ensure that we're all using the language that is most culturally sensitive, appropriate, and also the language that is most likely to be used by the students and the faculty within these particular cultural contexts. However, this is a really difficult thing to do, and I think it really engaged us all in conversations around even the coloniality of language, and maybe even the futility of trying to produce such a thing as a glossary of language. So what we have produced is a kind of living document that we all continually update, we have debates in the margins of, And we discuss the kind of different cultural contexts that are important when considering these kind of terms and approaches to language. And we're now producing a kind of toolkit about that process. So rather than offering a glossary and saying, this is the language you should use, we're talking about the process of developing a kind of document or resource for a project or for a teaching context that invites conversations and, you know, lives in the tensions, I suppose, of creating this kind of a tool. We are also working on a podcast as part of one of the other work packages called I Teach, which is producing podcasts as a kind of alternative way of learning. And UCD is responsible for leading all the podcast recordings at the podcast studios here in Dublin. And they're all currently being developed and translated from different languages by all the project partners. But our podcast specifically will be on decoloniality and intersectionality in education, so some of the topics that Ernesto covered here today. And we'll be interviewing Dr. Anna Ivasiuk in UCD, Dr. Bhargavi Das from the University of Delhi, Dr. Krishna Aureliella from UCD, and Dr. Fiona Murphy from DCU. So we'll have a kind of different, diverse group of people's kind of experiences in teaching and learning decoloniality and intersectionality. Oh, and of course, Ernesto as well. We also have in development a special issue on inclusive education in Sextant, which is a journal that we started off as a kind of student-centered journal here in UCD, but has been gradually expanding and kind of garnering attention from people from all different kind of spheres of academia. So if anyone is interested in submitting a reflection or an experience, an article about their experiences in these kinds of debates and experiences of inclusive education, we would really welcome that. So thank you. And then one of our tutors, who is a team member of the project, is currently developing something that she calls the Skill Mill, which is an inclusive learning exchange. So the idea is to create a kind of platform where people can share their skills with each other and learn something new. And rather than paying to learn a skill, there's this kind of idea of trading skills, trading knowledge in the kind of spirit of knowledge exchange. So that's something exciting that we hope to see developed further soon. And then we also have the UCD Inclusive Photo Competition, which is an example, I suppose, of ways that we can engage students in conversations around these issues and these kind of areas, and in a way to kind of translate their learning or their understanding in different mediums. So here at UCD, we're hoping to have many contributions to this competition where students can submit photos that they have taken related to the topics that we have here. And we also encourage you to enter that if you're a student and are interested in photography. So yes. So that is everything from me. Thank you.